watching NRA TV with Bill Whittle.
Hi everybody, I'm Bill Whittle, live from Los Angeles, and today we'll be talking about, just basically the daily kind of pop culture attack on Donald Trump update. It looks like we're not going to go a day for the next 2 years or 4 years, obviously, maybe 8 years, and if they keep it up, it'll certainly be 8 years. We're just going to kind of run down what's been going on again with the cultural overlords who have determined that the wrong person won the election, and we will see what they have to say about that. So let's start with the most heinous scandal in the history of the great American Republic, and that would be Melania Trump being so out of touch that she wore black stiletto heels to go down to the Houston relief efforts with the president. So Politico had a little tweet about this, which they since removed, about Melania Trump wearing those snazzy shoes. I don't know if we have that. Yeah, there we go. And it says there was no acknowledgement from the White House that the First Lady's storm attire was at all off-key. People drowning in Houston, and Politico is trying to score points off the fact that Melania Trump is going to visit the relief site, and she wore high heels going from the White House to the helicopter, because she's so out of touch and stupid. She's just such a mindless, vapid kind of, runway model who doesn't realize that you can't wear black, expensive high heels down in floodwaters. Or the First Lady of the United States, trying to maintain the dignity of the office of the President of the United States after 8 years of complete destruction, has had enough class and enough sense to wear heels to the helicopter in front of the news cameras and then change into appropriate shoes on the way down there. It's one of those two things, and Politico's made a decision as which one they're going to be. Delegitimize, delegitimize, delegitimize all the time. There is, in fact, a party that's out of touch, and that party is Politico. Because the more of this they do, the more the American people are not only just aware of this bias, but are getting more and more disgusted with it every day. I am. I'm sure you are as well. So that's the big scandal of the day. Melania Trump wearing high heel shoes from the White House to the helicopter, going down to visit the people in Houston. That's just amazing. What about the pop culture, though? We talk about the news, we talk about the pop culture. What about the celebrity clan, the people who we always look up to for moral guidance and intellectual support and things of that nature? Let's take a look at a little gem that came out just before the election. It stars many famous people, and these famous people have decided that you really should be voting for Hillary. And if you haven't figured that out yet, it's probably because you're too stupid. So here are some celebrities to help you understand exactly who you should vote for.
You only get this many famous people together if the issue's
one that truly matters to all of us.
A disease or
ecological crisis or
a racist, abusive coward who could permanently damage the fabric of our society.
Do the math. Do we really want to give nuclear weapons to a man whose signature move is firing?
Firing things?
But we can end this nightmare before it begins.
We can save the day.
For our children.
For our children.
For our children.
For our communities.
For our communities.
For our communities.
For America.
For America.
For America.
Oh, we can save this nightmare before it begins, all right. Don Cheadle, here's just a little clue for you. If you can call the President of the United States a racist monster nincompoop and not go to jail, then you don't live in a tyranny. See how simple it is? See how simple it is? And by inflating Donald Trump to this Nazi label, all you're trying to do is improve your own sense of self-worth and your own sense of courage, standing up to the forces of fascism while you get out of your limousines in your $200 million Hollywood homes and complain about the tyranny and the repression in America and the police state and the Nazi state that's coming. Don, there is a response for people like you and Scarlett Johansson and Robert Downey and all the rest of you who have to tell us who to vote for and what a horrible, terrible nightmare of a country we live in when we don't agree with you. And I would love to give it, but as it turns out, I don't have to give it. Some just regular citizens got together and gave it. So here's a little section of a response to that Save the Day video.
Thanks, famous actors, because
it's times like these when we realize just how lucky we are to have
famous Hollywood actors.
To guide us. To guide us.
They know stuff we just don't know.
Stuff we can't know.
Because we're not famous actors.
And they're not just acting smart.
They are smarter.
They are smarter.
And thank goodness they made it clear that we must vote for Hillary.
I could have made a terrible mistake without their help.
I thought Clinton deleting all those emails was
dishonest and corrupt.
And put our national security at risk.
But now we know it was all just an accident.
Just an accident.
It was just an accident.
An accident that could happen to any of us. I mean, who among us
couldn't accidentally hit the delete button 30,000 times?
30,000 times?
30,000 times.
Do these celebrity PSAs work? I mean, they did a whole bunch of them. They continue to do them, and they do them in the same style, the same way you would talk to kindergartners. I guess that's just what they're used to with their fan base. But do they work? Well, yes and no. In terms of do they work in terms of getting Hillary Clinton elected, I would have to say that the answer on that one would be a pretty solid no. They don't help get Hillary Clinton elected, and they didn't help Elizabeth Warren or any of these other people who they come out for. They didn't help any of these challenges from Democrats who's got the big Trump killer coming up over the last 7-8 months. Didn't help them in the slightest. But does it work in another way? Yes, it does. It works to the degree that it shows the American people the contempt that these people in Hollywood and New York have for you. And by the way, I have worked with these people for a fair amount of my life. And you will not find many people who are less educated and no people who are less morally decent than the Hollywood entertainment crowd. If you knew the details of what actually happened out here, if you knew how business was conducted out here, you'd be ashamed of yourself for being an American. And the accounting practices, if you used Hollywood accounting practices in any other occupation in the country, you'd be in jail for fraud. So these people whose marriages last a year are lecturing us on who we should be voting for? I don't think I quite understand that. Now, you remember, of course, Kathy Griffith. I know none of you really know who Kathy Griffith was before she made this splash. Kathy Griffith is a D-list celebrity, and she actually did something that she said she regretted. She held up a head of Donald Trump, held up the severed head of Donald Trump covered with blood. Well, Kathy Griffith is down there in Australia, and she says she's no longer sorry for holding up that severed head of Donald Trump. She says that actually it turns out he deserves it. So let me just read a couple things she said on an interview down there in Australia. Kathy Griffith said, "I called him the accidental president because he's not supposed to be the president." You hear that? He's not supposed to be the president. It was an accident. He lost by a very large margin, and now we're screwed. Kathy, look me in the eyes now. Here we go, right here. Kathy, he didn't lose by a large margin. The vote was, including the faithless electors, 304 to 227. That's a win. That's a significant win. And I know you're talking about the popular vote, Kathy, but guess what? We're not going after the popular vote, because if we did go after the popular vote, we'd have a different strategy. I'm not going to waste the time trying to explain to you why why the Electoral College protects us from people like you, but to say that he lost by a large margin, just wrong. You know, I think it was some famous coach. It might have been Bear Bryant or somebody like that. I think it was Bear Bryant at Alabama. And he beat the living daylights out of some team. And the other coach was so upset that he went up to Bear Bryant after the game and shook hands kind of sullenly and said, "Well, you know, we had more first downs than you did." And Bear Bryant said, "Okay, fine. Next time we'll play for first downs." Right? Next time we'll play for first downs. Scoreboard. Okay, he won big. Kathy Griffith goes on to say this: "I'm looking forward to exposing all the details about the story and the investigation. and that the idea that we have this insane, possibly Nazi, I'm going to go with Nazi-esque president in the White House. I mean, there's not two sides to Nazis. Let me just be clear that up. And he's going to come for me using taxpayer dollars because I shamed him. Oh, he was shamed by a girl. Look, I think I need to take him down globally, one joke at a time. Let's deconstruct this. You guys are so fond of deconstructing things. First of all, Kathy, you're not taking down anybody one joke at a time because nobody watches you. You don't have a career. This was the first splash you've had on the radar of any significance, and when the fame of that died off, you decided to come out and try and splash again. But there's a much, 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 much bigger point here than that. And it goes to you and it goes to every single other person that is calling Donald Trump a Nazi and calling the people who vote for Donald Trump Nazis. So let me just show you a couple of pictures. The actual pictures I can't show you because you'd vomit if you saw them, but let me just show you a picture here of a room that you might be interested in. That is a gas chamber from Auschwitz-Birkenau. And millions of people, over 1 million people in that camp alone, died in that room. They were forced in there so tightly that they couldn't sit down, they couldn't move. In fact, they had to get them out of there with crowbars after they died because they'd been packed in there, screaming for their lives for years. Millions of people killed in rooms like this. Let me show you another picture just to make sure you get the point here, Kathy Griffith. You see that pile of shoes? Those shoes belong to real people, the people who are as real as you are. And they are not here anymore because of actual Nazis. Now, I know you wear a lot of makeup and a lot of glamour. I know you're part of the whole Hollywood crowd, but the people whose shoes those are didn't have professional makeup stylists, and they didn't have professional lighting people. They were just simply moved into a killing field and executed and simply just eliminated. They were liquidated by real Nazis. One more picture. Here's what they look like going in, Kathy. This is a picture of you, I think, was taken out on the street. Yeah, see, that's what they look like, Kathy. They didn't look like super made-up celebrities. They didn't have a 4-hour makeup session. They looked just like that. Just like that. Regular people who were murdered by actual real-life Nazis. So let me just say this crystal clear for you and all the rest of you. Every single time that you call Donald Trump a Nazi, or me a Nazi, or conservatives a Nazi, or the red states a Nazi, or anybody who beat you, or anybody's winning an argument with you, anytime you call us a Nazi, you are going to have to answer to the dead people that the Nazis actually killed. You're going to have to answer to them, because every time you make an accusation that vile and that stupid, you are lowering the historical crime of the Nazis by comparing them to honest, good, decent, law-abiding citizens who you happen to disagree with. So they continue to make these PSAs. They use all these words and they call us these names, and I'm sick of it. So let's bring in our friend Dan Gainor from the Media Research Institute. Dan makes a living keeping an eye on these kind of things. Dan, it's good to see you again. Just before we went on the air, you told me about a magazine cover from Charlie Hebdo, which is a French magazine, which was, of course, the magazine that Islamic terrorists went in and just plain murdered people, 8 or 9 or 10 of them or something. Tell me about this cover of Charlie Hebdo that you related to me earlier today.
The new one, I don't know French, but I've seen the translation is, God exists. He drowned the neo-Nazis of Texas. And that you can see obviously on the cover, the Nazi flags and the people giving the Nazi salute, and they're all being buried under floodwaters. And this is, while it's extreme, it's not that different from a Politico cartoon today that it depicted a guy holding the Gadsden flag being rescued by a helicopter and said, "I'm being saved by angels." And the Politico cartoon says, "Oh no, we're not. We're from big government. We're the Coast Guard." And the Politico tweeted that out and then quickly deleted it. And the editorial cartoonist spent the rest of the afternoon defending himself because this is what they're doing. They're celebrating. They hate Texas. They hate America. And so Texas has always been a good, proxy for what America has always been, the pride and the honor and the people, the selfless sacrifice, the frontiersmen, and the left hates it.
Let me tell you, Dan, I wonder how many people, look, Rescue by the Coast Guard is not going to get any criticism from me. They're terrific people. They do an amazing job, an unsung job, and so on. But the total number of people rescued by big government in Texas is nothing compared to the number of people that were rescued by individual citizens who took their own initiative and their own boats and their own gas and their own money and drove hundreds of miles in many cases to simply go out there and rescue people. The Cajun Navy is not part of the Department of Defense. So that's for the political cartoonists. And as far as Charlie Hebdo goes, I hope you're paying attention over there, Charlie Hebdo, your French magazine, that says that the people in Texas are being drowned by God in order to get rid of neo-Nazis. Let me make something perfectly clear to you. The people in Houston and Texas and the South who are in the middle of these floodwaters are the same exact kind of people that came and saved your country from actual Nazis. You would be giving the Nazi salute now, and you would be living under swastikas right now if people from Texas and the South had not gone across the oceans and died to protect a country that you simply couldn't protect on your own. So you can take that magazine cover and you know what you can do with it. You miserable, low-life filth. To make an accusation like that against the people that came and gave their lives to save your country from Nazism. We got a God is drowning the Nazis in Texas now. Please, please, we'll have a word together sometime. We'll have a little talk, you and I, Charlie Hebdo editors. Dan, who do these people think they are?
Well, the PSA, it goes back to the PSAs. Hollywood thinks they are better than us, better in everything. Because what happens is they spend their whole lives being told, you're smart, you're beautiful, you're successful. So what we did, we looked at the PSAs. There have been 19 of them in the last couple of years. And we said, well, what's the most obvious thing you can tell about the people? Let's check their wealth. Collectively, they are worth, the people who've been in these PSAs, about 270, 280 of them in PSAs, they are worth $11.5 billion. That means they're worth equal to the budget of the state of Nebraska. 1.9 million people live in Nebraska, not 270, 280. So those 270, 280 people think they can tell us how to vote to back the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is just a disgusting anti-conservative, anti-Christian hate group. And that's the latest PSA. They think they know how America should be run. And honestly, I think they did more to elect Donald Trump than anybody who voted for Donald Trump. I think Americans are turned off and tired of this.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the fact that the more of these things that these people do, the more Donald Trump seems assured of a second term. And if they keep it up the way they're doing it now, they can count on a constitutional amendment to make sure he gets a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh term like their hero, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. This is the Hot Mike Show on NRA TV, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
It's hard to believe, but this year marks the 6th season of the Noir show. I've had a hell of a good time trying to put together the best take on gun culture I possibly can. And one of the best parts has been interacting with you, the fans. One thing you've said from the very beginning is we want more noir. Well, me too. So this year I'm doing things a little different. We aren't gonna wait until the fall to give you finished, polished, shiny new episodes. Nope. This year, we're gonna release content while we're still in production. So some of these videos are gonna make it into the final episodes this fall. Others are only gonna be standalone. Either way, my goal is to give you exactly what you want. More noir. So look forward to all sorts of new content from the Noir show for the rest of the year. And I hope you enjoy.
I mean, if you were to Google him, you know, all of these things come up. It's Rich Froning. He's a Reebok athlete. He's the 4-time fittest man on earth. He's the 2-time Affiliate Cup champion. But if you're from Cookeville, you just know Rich is a good guy.
I can't speak more highly of Rich Froning, just simply because of his heart, of his humanity for people who are hurting.
That kind of love and support that you see in his heart and life, it just rubs off on you as just being around him.
4 years ago, we had our first Rich Froning's Mayhem for Mustard Seed, and this year we had our fourth event that raised over $200,000 towards the kids at Mustard Seed Ranch.
And we're back on Bill Whittle live from Los Angeles. We're talking with Dan Gainor from the Media Research Institute, and I'm still livid about that Charlie Hebdo cover. So just one more time, since I got to get this out of my system. Nobody in France has any right, no moral ground whatsoever, to ever talk about Americans being Nazis. If you want to talk about Nazis and you want to talk about Americans and they deserve to die and they deserve to drown and all the rest, take a walk on those beaches in Normandy and you take a look at those graveyards there, and those are American people, many of them from the South and Texas, who came to save your country when you couldn't do it for yourself. Okay? Fighting the Nazis does not mean overcharging them by a few francs in a cafe, and thinking you're part of the big resistance. Stop it. We've had enough of it. Stop. We have had enough of this. Now, back to you, Dan. Do you think that these attitudes towards Americans are, in terms of their resentment and rage towards these celebrities, is growing? Meryl Streep said during the Golden Globes that she was in a room with the most despised people in America, celebrities, Hollywood, and foreign journalists, I guess, foreigners. They're not used to being criticized like this, but it seems to me that everything that they're doing is counterproductive. Is there any evidence of that?
Well, I'll give you a great example. It wasn't exactly Hollywood celebrities. It was CNN. One of the CNN reporters was interviewing one of the flood victims yesterday. And I think people view media as media. I think they view Hollywood and news the same. And when the reporter, here's this woman with her child, and they just got out of the floodwaters and they're shivering, and this reporter shoves a camera and a microphone in her face, and the woman told her off, and blank you, and we won't use that word, but she said, this is wrong with media. You're taking people at their most vulnerable point and then expecting they're leeches. That it's a hard spot to be in it as a journalist, but the sensitive thing is to talk to the people ahead of time and say, I know you're having a hard time. Is there anything you want to say? And if they don't want to talk, you don't shove a microphone in their face. So I think people, and we saw one of the CNN reporters was complaining because he went somewhere where the crowd, even in Texas, was saying nasty things about them. The American public are fed up with the elite of New York, the elite of Washington, the elite of LA, who think they live better lives, they know better, they know, we should all change how we live because of climate change, and then they have 3 houses and fly all over the world like Al Gore. They think they know how we should live, and we're sick of it.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And by the way, when we say that they're the elite, that doesn't mean that they are actually elite. They consider themselves the elite. I've met these people. These are 60-watt temperature, these are 60-watt intellects that we're talking about, especially the actors who are appearing in these PSAs. So, Dan, if you looked at one of the one we did, the Save the Day video at the beginning of the show, it looks pretty much like the entire cast of the Avengers was in there. Robert Downey Jr. was there, and Scarlett Johansson and Mark Ruffalo and all the rest. Hollywood has had just an absolutely catastrophic summer. The box office revenues this year have been disastrous. Flop after flop after flop after flop after flop. Do you think that's a signal to Hollywood that the American people are being tired? They're just sick of being told how to vote? Won't you people just shut up and dance?
Well, I think people want to see what they've always want to see. They don't want to, they're tired of anti-heroes. They want to see real heroes. When American Sniper came out, Hollywood was stunned how well it did. It's like, well, it's not doing well in the major cities, but it did well in the heartland. It really rocked up the box office. But instead, we get movies that make fun of America. There's a new movie out. I've been struggling trying to remember the name, but it just came out today, and it's of course about the South seceding and invading the North, and it's just a B movie, and ordinarily you and I wouldn't even notice it. except of course the important reviewers and such. Oh, they love it. It's a movie that came out at the right time, and it shows how evil the South can be, and these glorious New Yorkers taking it to the man. And look, I'm sick of this. I think most of us, there was a cartoon I saw somebody post today, and it showed this is what's really going on. It showed a mixed group of people in a lifeboat with an American flag helping people in Texas, but rescuing them, and it had it's a unity. That's what's really going on. And that is, no matter how much Hollywood tries to tear us apart and say we're all haters by promoting the hate group, the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Dan Gainor from the Media Research Center. His job is to keep track of all of these outrages and abuses. I don't know how you do it, Dan, frankly. Just one of those magazine covers enough to make me sick for the rest of the day. Thanks very much for joining us, and I'm sure we'll see you again real soon.
Thanks, Bill. Take care.
There is that movie coming out, by the way. And in the movie, people from the South basically, as he said, try to take over the government and basically try to take over New York City. And here's the funny thing about that movie is that they could do it too. Wouldn't take but 15 Texans to take over California, and probably fewer than that to basically take over New York City. They project all of their moral failures onto a third party, and we're the third party. And I have spent the last 5 years at least in-depth studying, I mean really, really in-depth, 30 or 40 books studying how the Nazis came to power and how the communists came to power. And one of the things that they did, in fact, the essential element of these tyrannies, the socialist tyrannies, National Socialists, International Socialists, didn't matter, millions of people, 100 million people killed, and every single time that they bring this catastrophe to the world, the first thing they have to do is they have to demonize an opponent. They have to demonize an opponent, and they have to make somebody responsible for all of their own failures. And I'm watching it happen here, and I'm one of those people that they're demonizing, and so are you, and I'm not going to take it, which is why the only peace I have sometimes when I go to bed at night is the thought that, oh, wait a minute, we're the ones with the guns, and they're not. They're the ones who are afraid to open a jackknife. That gives me a little warmth sometimes in the middle of these onslaughts. We'll be back tomorrow. There'll be more of this outrage, and we'll be here to cover it. I'm Bill Whittle. This is the Hot Mic Show on NRA TV.